Engage fluo injectors.
Engaging fluo injectors.
Fluo reactors at 80%, sir.
Fluo containment field is destabilizing.
Emergency fluo containment protocols now. All hands brace for impact.
Brace for impact in 3, 2, 1.
Hot diggity damn, we're back with another episode of World 1-1 Podcast. And this week, as always, we're asking the all-important question, what else can we fuck up today? So, let's kick off with a quick tease for the third half of the show, and I should have had this pulled up, but I didn't. What are we bringing in the third half? It's coming to me. We did that. Oh, Wes and I are asking the all-important question. Do you feel ethical, punk? Well, do you? So stick around where we're talking about ethics in gaming. There's a fun one for you. As always, you can and should subscribe and share, but do it in the most uncomfortable way possible. Make sure that you lubricate generously. Rub the subscribe button in small circles, consistent speed until it starts moaning, and then it just squirts content all over your feed. It's amazing. Everybody loves the squirter. Anyways, now that we're out of that, jump into the Discord. There's a link in our show notes. Come join the conversation. Come fucking talk to us if I haven't already fucking repulsed you with that obnoxious subscribe and share thing. But be warned, the subscribe and share joke is probably going to stay for a while. It's become too much fun. But yeah, hit the link for the Discord. Jump in. You know, if you've got thoughts on this week's episode, previous episodes, ideas for upcoming episodes, you know, let us know. We want to hear from you. Awesome shout out to our sponsor, Imaginary Authors, helping you up your scent game with fragrances for guys, gals, and non-binary pals. More about them just before the break. All that out of the way.
Choose your fighter.
I am, as always, your host, Roald the Wall. Joining me back from the dead, finally. He's still trying to escape the clutches of Florida. Josh the LeGroux.
Yo, what's up?
I'm telling you, dude, fucking sell your house and move up here. You can bank the rest and put it into savings and fucking retire early.
I mean, I could, I guess, but then I would have to be close to you, so that would be another downside of that one. I will never, ever get anything positive done, because we'd be, like, hanging out all the time.
Maybe our combined presence will get Michael out of his fucking house.
It could be, could be, but I highly doubt it. I mean, he loves his house,
Mm-hmm. He does. I mean, it's where all his stuff is, and people aren't.
Yeah. I don't blame him. Mm-hmm. I don't blame him one bit.
No, I get it. I get it more and more, but I still try and coax him out of his house once in a while for his own good. So.
Agreed.
All right. Let's jump to...
Video games.
Since it's been a minute since you and I have talked about this, we've talked about plenty of other shit in the meantime, but fuck's sakes, what have you been playing, man?
I haven't been playing as much as I want to. I'll be totally honest. The last time I think I talked about Final Fantasy VII Remake for the PS5. I'm still dabbling in that. I have kind of started playing Alan Wake Remastered, which I have not played the remastered version of Alan Wake, and I love Alan Wake. So part of that is because now Alan Wake 2 is coming out. Is going to be, you can pre-order it physically right now.
Right.
And, so I'm kind of like, I got to like December, but it's been a heck of a summer so far, and I'm just trying to get through it. So when I do have time, if you're watching the video, you'll see how messed up the background is for me right now. This is what I've been dealing with, because now I've got my wife on my ass to clean up some of this stuff has gone into the living room, and it's been sitting out there, and bless her heart, it's been sitting out there a long time, and she hasn't said anything. And so now she's finally started to say, well, this has to either go in the trash, the garage, or your room. You decide. So the trash is not an option. So it's the garage or my room. So I've been working on a lot of my free time. I'll be honest. I've been just having a movie on my TV in the background there, and I've just been trying to go through some of this stuff, which I've got a lot of the shelves taken care of. And on this side, which you probably can't see a lot, but I've got a lot of the the games now taken care of. So now I can decide if I want this stuff in the room, like on this shelf here and that, and so then I can get back to really kind of gaming. But I was teasing everybody I was going to play Lord of the Rings Gollum, and I actually put it in my Xbox and installed it, and then I thought I should probably stop. So that's how far that got. Between organizing the game room, playing that, dabbling a little bit in Metroid Prime remake, the remaster, and then that's about it. And the only reason I dabbled in that remaster was I found my Switch, I found the docking station so I could hook it up to the TV, and I did. I was like, all right, I'm going to try this with the Pro Controller and see what it's like. Because the only time I actually really played it was handheld on a plane, and I liked it. But I wanted to wait for the Pro Controller to come out and get it.
Right.
And then we did talk about one time if can I use the GameCube controller, you can. So I haven't actually tried that yet. I just wanted to see what it plays like. And so far so good. So I think maybe next time I actually play it, I'll probably plug in that Pro Controller, that GameCube controller.
Yeah.
And see what it plays like.
Now, did you play the original on GameCube or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I originally played it and loved it. Because, I mean, I got it when it came out. I actually pre-ordered that from GameStop back in the day. I went and picked it up when it first came out. So.
Okay. So, if I remember right, I think the only difference when you're playing with the GameCube controller on the Switch is that it doesn't have the analog detection on the shoulder buttons.
Sure.
It's just digital.
And I'll be honest with you, it's been so long since I played it on the GameCube, I wouldn't even know the difference at this point.
I gotta say, for Prime, it's not super essential, but there are definitely other games where that shit would make a difference. But
apparently, like
Prime,
you can play
it's
Mario Sunshine. You can play Mario Sunshine with that too, and that does make a big difference because how hard you hold that button, like the triggers,
right,
matters how much water you can spray and stuff like that. So
yeah, but all right. So let's see here. What has I've been playing? So I picked up, and I'm still plucking my way through Prince of Persia: Lost Crown. Started that shit last week, and I've been playing it more this week. Mostly today, if I'm being honest. My week's been a little kind of weird all over the place. But I will say that most of my gripes from last week about Prince of Persia have kind of fallen to the wayside. I haven't run into any more buggy, glitchy shit yet, and I've been playing for another good handful of hours. So that's a plus. It seems to have just kind of been opening game jitters almost.
sure.
I'm starting to get a sense of scale of the sprawl of the map. It's starting to open up to me here. Banged out a couple of boss fights, picked up a few abilities. It's starting to hit its stride, which thank God, because it had a major momentum killer in the beginning. It opened so well. Do you remember the opening of Shadow Complex?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So it opens like Shadow Complex. Fucking big action, cool shit going on. You're a badass. And you've got great momentum going in. And then you get through the intro, and it fucking hits the brakes on all the momentum so that it can stop and be super fucking talky for way too long.
Okay.
And then it very slowly eases you into the big Metroidvania map. Versus, I'm like, you had a good thing going here. You should have just fucking rolled it and didn't. But it's starting to gain its momentum back and fall into its appropriate groove. Even if they had cut out the talky bit and swapped it out for a couple minute cutscene, like I said, I think they should have. It still would have slowed the momentum, and you would have had to build back up, and it would have never hit that same big battle momentum from the opening, but it wouldn't have felt so jarring.
Right.
But it's at least getting into a good Metroidvania momentum, where it should be for the genre it's in. I'm definitely seeing the parallels between Lost Crown and Dread. I hit a big fucking Manticore boss fight, and I'm like, oh look, it's Corpius. The combat doesn't feel quite as
Smooth.
fluid and fun as Dread did, though. It's not bad, but it makes you realize exactly how perfectly Dread did combat. So it just, I wish it was a little smoother, a little quicker. But other than that, the platforming is solid. The puzzles are minimal-ish, but like the puzzles are very platformy puzzles. I'm like, cool, I'm here for this.
Mhm.
It's not hitting you with like brainbuster logic puzzles that would feel out of place. Though every once in a while, depending on the Metroid game, Metroid would at least throw you a couple of logic puzzles to break up the monotony a little bit, which was nice. Echoes, I think, was probably one of the best for that, truth be told. But the discrepancy in the art styles, like the conflicting art styles, is a little less jarring the more that I play, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like I should still be irritated by it, but I think part of me is just...
You're like, you just accept it now.
Basically, and I feel
Yeah.
a little bad for that, but it's still there. I mean,
as long as you're
now.
Yeah, I think as long as you're enjoying yourself, it's like, just you can put away some of that stuff.
Right. I just wish I didn't have to. I wish that it had been better done from the jump. Like they were a handful of tweaks away from greatness.
Sure.
And that's kind of a shame. And like you missed it by that much. That said, there's what am I getting at here? It's enough for me to keep playing, but it's enough for me to really wish that they had just fixed it. Oh, I know the other thing. So the big thing that they praised real hard for introducing with the map system, like being able to take pictures of the screen that you're on and tag it to that spot on the map. You know, a lot of the reviews were like, it's revolutionary, all Metroidvania games. I don't care. I've not used it once. I shit you not. All right, so getting away from Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
A little bit more Balatro in the mix still. It's still a magnificent bedtime game, and I'm still dead set determined we're going to do a fucking episode on bedtime games. I swear to God, it's going to happen. I got to get the right people to try out the right shit, and then we can have a conversation here. But it's coming. I haven't cracked it open yet, and I'm going to pull an Eddie for a second here. But not real bad, I swear to God. A limited Eddie.
Okay. Might get up, go to the bathroom, come back. You still going? Just kidding.
Get a snack, have lunch.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I saw it on the eShop for like $2, and it reminded me of like Papers, Please, kind of, just at a glance. Picked up a game called Editor's Hell, and it caught my attention. Like it looks kind of simple on the front, but it seems to, from what I can see from the preview, because again I haven't cracked it open yet. Basically, you're working as an editor at a newspaper, and you've kind of got to walk that fine line between how much of the truth can you let slip out versus how much do you have to censor, and weighing your own personal morals against striking down the truth in order to get, the publication out, kind of thing. And I'm like, this sounds fucking interesting. I want to check this out. Which I'm going to springboard and segue off of the whole reading thing. And I just want to share a cool little fucking tidbit that I came across this morning when I was browsing the interwebs for a minute. And I've talked about the Playdate a little bit. I have not gotten to pick one up. I want one. It's just not in the budget at the moment. There's more important things going on right now. But the Playdate has something, apparently an extra something going for it that I didn't realize. So it's got its own little digital shop for Playdate games. But there's also not just games, but there's apparently some applications on there as well, including from what I was reading this morning, a very competent e-reader for the Playdate. I'm like, okay, and they did the exact thing that you would want them to. They made it so you can sit there and keep scrolling through your book with the crank mechanism on the side.
Okay.
I'm like, yes, please. It's a perfect little fucking scroll wheel.
Yeah.
And I can sit there with this little thing and just read my book and just kind of slowly fidget my way through, keeping my... I'm like, God, that's perfect. Fuck, it's so good. I want it. Like, as if I did not have enough reasons to want a Playdate, including the fact that Lucas Pope's new game is a Playdate exclusive.
Right.
So, I genuinely want the Playdate to fucking boom. I do. Like, I need somebody to hit the market with a serious disruption again. We're due. And the Playdate could be it if it gets a few more, like, killer applications, big indie names. Lucas Pope's a good start. I don't know who else and where else they would go. I could fathom seeing Jonathan Blow doing something incredibly clever with the Playdate. I just don't know what.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it now that I've seen this and heard of it, and the only thing I could really think is that there are other systems that do this or similar things. I know it's not exactly, but it's kind of like you said, you need some really good game software on it to drive people to it.
Like, if they did it right, they could very well have the next DS on their hands, because they have a unique control input mechanism that offers something that nobody else does. And if you can get enough people, developers, thinking the right way about it, you could do a lot with that. Honestly, the idea that popped into my head, I want a Doctor Who game for the Playdate where it's all about you play a one-off character that's having a run-in with the Weeping Angels.
Yeah.
And the little crank controller powers your flashlight so that you can see the Weeping Angels, and you gotta, make sure that you keep the flashlight powered on so you can stay alive long enough for the Doctor to fucking come and rescue you.
Yeah.
But you also have to keep them in line of sight, which means a lot of times if you're trying to get to an objective marker, you would have to be walking backwards so you can keep the angels in view.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but yeah, just unique little ideas. I mean, if there's enough micro ideas or mini ideas and, a decent enough batch of full-size games built ground up for the Playdate that have enough of an idea to really explore with the crank controller, the Playdate could go somewhere. And I'll give it this. It's been around for a little while now. It's been around long enough that I don't think it's just going to flash in the pan and disappear. Because if that was going to happen, it would have already fucking happened. It's still trucking competently. It just hasn't boomed yet. So that's a step in the right direction, and that's more than some of the other platforms from other manufacturers who've done in the past, trying to crack into the market. So it's got like its underground cult staying power. It just needs to hit the mainstream with a couple of brilliant mass appeal games. And I hate to say it, but the price point's a deterrent. it's still saltier than it should be.
Yeah, I mean the thing is too, you get all the games.
True.
You know, so $199 with all the games, and it's the season. That's full season 1. So apparently they're going to have seasons of games they're going to sell you, or they're going to try to.
Right.
Okay,
So,
well that's interesting.
which is-
Okay.
Yeah, and
I'd
it's
have
not
to
a
look
bad
at it a
way to
little
do it
more.
either.
No, I'd have to look at it a little more. You know, that's the thing where if it's almost like it's like a Game Pass thing, like wrapped into a hardware that they're going to sell you. So you're going to pay $200, but you're getting 25 games or 24 games. This hardware, and then the possibility of new games. So it's like if there's 2 or 3 games in there that really, you know, you could sink a couple hours into, it's probably worth it. Just,
Right.
you know, do you want to?
Yeah. Well, that and like I said, that little e-reader thing. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'd fuck with that. So, but no, it was just a neat little fucking tidbit that I felt merited throwing in. Because as much as I like the Playdate, and despite the fact I don't fucking have one, and it's literally only due to monetary reasons right now that I don't have a Playdate.
Yeah.
You know, when I see something cool like that, I feel obliged to bring it up because it's not talked about a whole ton. And as far as I know, nobody else in our little circle of people here has one either. So I really would like to get my hands on one to
I'd like to
try
talk
it
to
all
someone.
out. And,
I would love to talk to someone who has it.
mm-hmm.
You know, I guess I could go look at YouTube videos or whatever, but it would be interesting to
Right.
actually like talk to someone that has it and says like, "Hey, this is good. This is shit." You know, or this part's good about it. This part's not. This part, you know, seems like it's
Right.
a pretty well system. So
From what I've heard in the reviews, Lucas Pope's new game on there, what was it Midnight After Mars or whatever the hell it's called? I'm sure
Yeah.
I've got the name wrong, but apparently it's a pretty clever take on. It's almost like a variation on a theme of what he did with Papers, Please, but not, you know, just a carbon copy. He's like, no, I have a new idea to explore, and this is where I can do it best. And that kind of thing gets me fucking excited.
yeah,
You know, like this dude fucking saw this and went, I know just what to do. And that gets me excited when somebody sees something like that and goes, I have the thing for this.
right.
I've been waiting for this idea. I'm like, God, that shit makes me fucking hard. So, yeah, you know, if you get a chance, or if you got one, jump in the Discord and fucking tell us about it. We want to hear your fucking experience with the Playdate, because it looks nifty, and I would love to get my hands on it. So, which, you know, if the manufacturer was around listening, you could send me one, and I would probably be talking about Playdate games for a good long fucking while. But, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Do what you want. So, sponsorship opportunities are available.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I'm trying to think if there's been anything else that I've really been digging into here. I did notice, too, I was going through and doing some fucking updates. I noticed that they actually released a separate app for the Switch for the M-rated N64 games. They didn't
Really?
just dump it. Yeah. There is a separate fucking app for just the M-rated 64 games. They apparently said we can't just put this all in the same place. So I
What
downloaded
games are they
that.
talking
and it's,
about?
what is it? Turok and Perfect Dark, I think.
Oh, come on. Okay.
I know, right?
Jeez. Nothing like M-rated, early polygonal products.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I mean, you watch the news, you've seen worse.
Tell me about it. Dabbled with a little F-Zero 99, not a whole ton, but a couple of races just for shits and giggles. Hadn't done that in a while. That's a hard one for me to play. That's weird. Like, one, bonus points. I can do like direct multiplayer with somebody else. So my long distance partner and I, every once in a while for date night, we'll crack out the Switches and we'll just play F-Zero together. But it's real hard for me to play that and not get a little sad that that's all the F-Zero that we've gotten in like 20 years.
Just tells you what obviously like they just don't feel like there's they're just not worth their time, or they're not a market, or I don't know.
Well, no, the stupid thing is what they've said in interviews about it in years previous is that they haven't put out another one because they haven't figured out something new to do with it. I'm like, I don't want you to do something new with it, fuckers. Just give me more of that. Christ, at this point, if you just give me a remaster of GX, I'll call it a day even. Just something.
Yeah, bring forward some of it to modern hardware, basically.
Right. Because, I mean, the last mainline entry was on the GameCube, and that's been it since then. And it was so, and don't get me wrong, it holds up well to this day. I can still bust out the GameCube, pop in GX, and have a great fucking time. Especially on a big screen. Oh, just choice. Throw that bitch into like bumper cam mode. Oh, you hear the ground literally like whooshing underneath your machine. It's a little minor detail, but the fact that 20 years ago they were thinking of it and they did it. Yes, you were on it. You had the thing. Just put a fresh coat of paint on it. Bring it up. Maybe toss in a couple new tracks or a new cup, and that's enough. I will give you $60 for that. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want. It's so frustrating. But that said, I'm trying to kind of keep that separate from the fact that what they do have with 99 is a good game. It's a lot of fun. Like there's some clever stuff that they did to adjust the original Super Nintendo game into a massively multiplayer format, and it works really well. So, like, what's there is great. It's just not the thing that I'm jonesing for. But when I turn it on and play it, I still have fun. There's just that little bit of, like, bittersweet in the back of, your head going, but it could have been this.
Right.
So, that's a weird one to wrestle with. But that's most of what I've been playing, I think. I don't think I turned on the Xbox at all this week, if I'm being honest. No, I did turn it on, but it was just to watch GDQ. So, I know that'll totally timestamp this recording. Don't really care. I think I've got the recording schedule back on track, actually, which this should be going up on Friday this week. But you should also have gotten an episode on Monday this week as well, which should bring everything up to current because we had a little bit of a backlog with some stuff going on. But yeah, so GDQ happened this past week, and there was some good runs in there. I need to go through and update my my GDQ bedtime playlist because that's one that I put on every once in a while. There was one that I wanted to watch, and honestly, I had to skip. I felt a little sad about it. They were doing a run of Outer Wilds, and I had to turn it off because I've not finished Outer Wilds yet, and you can't really do that without spoiling important things. So, but all right, I think I'll leave it there. So before we jump to the break, quick word about our awesome sponsor, Imaginary Authors, helping you up your scent game with fragrances for guys, gals, and non-binary pals. All sorts of great fucking fragrances. Like I said, personal favorites, City on Fire, Memoirs of a Trespasser, Languages of a Glacier, Bull's Blood's a real fucking interesting summer scent. And if you can't decide what you want or you're not sure, put yourself together an awesome little sampler size pack. Check out a little bit of everything. And then when you find one, you can also, supplement and complement that with matching perfumed candles, oils, bar soaps. It's all fantastic. They're doing great work. Check them out. Link in the show notes down below. That's Imaginary Authors. Get on it. Smell good. Turn some heads. All right. So, coming up after the break, we're talking about, do you feel ethical, punk? Well, do you? And we'll find out right after the break. And And we're back with the third half of the show. This week, we are taking a dive down the warp pipe.
Oh, wow. Love these pipes.
And we're looking at and asking the question, where is the line of ethicality when it comes to addictive mechanics in video games? And I'm actually going to toss this to Wes to lead on here today.
Right. So I think we have all been there at some point where we've played a game, otherwise perfectly ethical game, but we look up and we realize, oh my god, we should have been asleep 3 hours ago. Or, oh my god, my wife is about to come home and I have not done any cleaning today. Or something along those lines. And sometimes the problem is entirely with us, but sometimes the problem is we're just playing a game that's too darn addictive. And this is not me trying to throw shade at any developers intentionally, at the very least. But sometimes we need to acknowledge the fact that these addicting mechanics can and do have a negative effect on us, right? So, what we recognize, we're having a whole lot of fun. But at the same time, having all this fun can also be, hey, I don't want to stop having all this fun. And so, what got me to want to propose this topic specifically was Balatro. Great game. Very well designed game. Has all the bells and whistles of a slot machine. And I think that's a slight part of the problem. You've played it before. You know exactly what I'm talking about here, right? And just like a slot machine says, oh, you only need to give $1 more to play, or a quarter if it's an old one, Balatra's like, sure, you can win a round in 15 to 20 minutes, theoretically speaking. Why don't you give it another go? Just 15 or 20 more minutes. And then you do that, and it's like, okay, but what about another 15 or 20 minutes? And all of a sudden, you've spent 4 or 5 hours playing Balatro when you've had other things you've been meaning to do today. And
on that subject, I feel like enter the conversation Vampire Survivors.
Yes.
Considering
absolutely.
his background.
Right, because he literally worked on online gambling games. I forget what the developer's name is. I know his studio is called Poncle.
Oh, he worked on like actual like video slot machine stuff too.
Right, and you can see that in Vampire Survivors, especially with the treasure chests opening and how it basically acts like a slot machine. It's random, whatever you got gets upgraded.
I'll say then there's Luck Be a Landlord as well too, which is an actual like roguelike slot machine game.
Right. And now, these developers, at the very least, I'm 99.9% sure, are not being intentionally predatory. In fact, calling it predatory still feels a little bit disingenuous because they're after your money a little bit. They're charging for their games, but they gotta eat. They gotta make money somehow. Yeah. But at the same time, how much of this is they're making a good game, and how much of this is they're making a game that triggers all the right chemicals in our brain to make us not think about how shallow it can be sometimes. That feels... I'm not trying to imply these are bad games, but... Gosh, it's almost hard to talk about this without sounding like I'm insulting.
It wants to keep your... Yeah.
Right.
No, it wants to keep your eyes glued to their screen.
Right.
And that's a normal thing. You know, if it doesn't have that element that keeps you interested and invested, you're not going to keep playing, and it's not a good game. So the question really becomes, I think, you know, where is the line between making a game engaging enough to make you want to keep playing it and finish it, or, you know, I think we just found the line, or, you know, versus make you keep playing it and paying for it and playing for it and paying for it and round, which is where you start dabbling into live services and idler games and things like that, where the goal is to keep you playing, not just to keep you playing, but to continue to extract money.
Right.
In little tiny amounts over and over again to where you don't notice what's happening, hopefully, if you're the publisher.
And it
So,
feels like
now,
the
I will
easy...
It's
You go.
been I would say it's been a number of years, but Boston Legal actually had an episode on this subject, and this was before we were getting into like the microtransaction gambling territory as well. This was closer to the Korean gaming cafe issue, where it's, you know, they had to start putting time limits on things because people would sit there and play and play and play and not eat and not drink and would fucking die.
Right.
Which there's a level of self-accountability in there that I don't know that you can necessarily put on the developer or the publisher, because that problem was pretty culturally exclusive to that area, even though it's the same game that the rest of us were playing. So, but I think that line rests in the in where financial extraction comes into the picture.
Right. And I feel like that's a very easy answer to leave it at and say, hey, so long as you charge $5 for the initial game and don't ask for anything more unless it's substantial DLC, or $15 in the case of Balatro or anything like that, then sure. But at the same time is arguably a significantly more valuable resource to lose than money.
Mm-hmm.
And
It can be.
it can be. And sometimes I'm just wondering to myself, like, what can we do to minimize how addictive games can be, but also keep them fun? Because there's this tightrope balance you gotta walk. Because any time you do something that makes yourself happy, you're releasing dopamine into your brain. And it's literally, dopamine is literally that and serotonin are literally the only things that make you happy in healthy amounts. And if that doesn't get released into your brain, you're not going to keep doing whatever you're doing, or at the very least, you're not going to want to keep doing whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing is, I think you nail that balance when you can keep somebody playing but not fully strip the majority of the gaming public of their ability to say, yeah, I gotta put this down, I got other shit to do. There's always going to be some that don't, but you can't account for everyone. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't. And maybe we're just going to come to the easy conclusion of it's okay so long as it's not money. But at the very least, I feel like it would be a good idea to get this conversation started, to make us realize some of these games are addicting. And sure, it's not as bad as, say, being addicted to drugs, or it's not as bad as spending all this money on it, but it kind of reminds me of like the problem we've got of vaping versus smoking, where sure, on paper, vaping is a whole lot healthier than smoking, but how many people that wouldn't have smoked are now vaping to begin with?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think I might have found it. It's the problem comes when you mix money and uncertainty. The gambling mechanic isn't a problem by itself. When you mix it with money, Now you have a problem.
Right.
That, I think, is where your line of ethics comes into play, because, and I know this is a horse that Sterling has beat to death, but when you mix that gambling uncertainty with money, you now have a problem. The gambling by itself, not a problem. You know, you've got games like, like we were just talking about, Balatro or Vampire Survivors, that lean into those randomized gambling mechanics. Most any roguelike or roguelite has some of that in there too, typically, to one extent or another. Not all, but most. And the financial component by itself is not inherently a problem. I paid $15 for a copy of Balatro. It's not a problem. I paid $5 for a copy of Luck Be a Landlord. That by itself is not a problem, because I knew what I was getting in exchange for that fixed amount of money. But when you put those two together, and then you also add in that unlike any other gambling establishment, there is no regulation. Now you have a problem.
Right.
Gambling mechanic plus money minus regulation is where your problem is, because there's no regulatory body to keep that in check, and the publishers have been allowed to run rampant with that. And you see it come out real heavy in some big releases like FIFA, where building your team now comes down to how much money can you pump into the game to hopefully pull all the right players that you want for your team. Instead of saying, I paid $60 for the game, let me build my team, give me the complete roster. I paid a $60 cover charge to then go gamble to try and build the team that I want.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that.
And
Because
Lord knows
it's-
how much money it's going to take me to get there.
because it reminds me of the hypocrisy of some of the bodies that do exist to do this. Here in the United States, the ESRB does a very, very weak job. They might say this game, I think they've put a label on this game includes in-game purchases. But they make no distinction
That's it.
between DLC and microtransactions. So The Witcher 3, for example, because it has multiple expansions, is in the exact same boat as Madden NFL and FIFA Soccer and NHL Hockey, so on and so forth. I would argue, though, if you look at PEGI, they recently got shown out as hypocrites. For those who don't know, PEGI is basically the European equivalent of the ESRB. They gave Balatro the highest rating possible because of gambling mechanics, but FIFA regularly still gets approved as a game for children.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so while I said that Balatro was the game that made me want to have this conversation about maybe we should talk about toning down addictive mechanics in games, there's no denying it's significantly less predatory than FIFA, because it asks for your $15 and that's all the money it wants.
Right. Another piece of this, just to get a little more fine-toothed, is the fact that with the gambling mechanics as well, there's no odds posted anywhere,
Right.
on what you're getting and what you're betting on. That's one of those things that having a regulatory body involved says that you have to have. Go to any casino. Your odds are posted. So you can at least make an informed decision. Here you're missing information before you're deciding whether or not to throw money at it.
Right.
And there's an ethics issue.
And if they do post the odds, we're having to assume they're telling the truth as well. Because we don't have access to their source
and
code.
at that point, I think they may. We don't, but if it was a regulated thing, I think they actually have to show their algorithm for their odds being posted. I would assume so. I can't absolutely confirm that. I don't work for, a gambling commission of any sort, but I suspect that that's the case. It has to be verifiable in order to post those odds. And they're not being held to any standard. And that's where your ethics issue comes in play here. They're not being held to any standard. They're not holding themselves to any fucking standard. There's no regulation involved. And you're mixing that gambling with money. So it starts at a few basic points, but then you start pulling apart the nuance and going, well, this part also involves this thing, and this thing to make this thing that creates an issue or stops it from being an issue. So, but again, they want to extract as much money as humanly possible. And no one is holding them accountable for the ways in which they do it. And there are some ways that they're perfectly entitled to. If you want to, piecemeal your game, that's your choice. And as to whether or not it benefits or hurts the publisher financially as a result, that's up to the market. But at least everybody's cards are on the table, no pun intended here, and everyone's, playing fairly. Here, we don't get all the information. And no one says that they have to provide all the information to us as the consumer. And there's a problem. And these publishers have no problem with that. And that should be incredibly disconcerting to everybody involved.
It should be.
So it speaks volumes about their ethics.
And I think it also...
or lack thereof.
I think what regulatory bodies there are, whether they're government or company enforced, or industry enforced, I should say, I think it really, really shows where their influences lie. That Balatro, which, like I said, made me want to start the conversation, but start it in the way that I'm recognizing if it's predatory at all, it's significantly less than these other games. Just questioning, should we at least talk about it? It gets the mature rating because of its quote-unquote gambling mechanics, when really the addicting part of it is kind of all the flashing colors and the big number go burr in your brain.
Right.
Versus FIFA still
that
being
all
approved for
equates
kids.
in. And there is some simulated actual gambling in Balatro, just not in the sense of you're placing bets, but in the spending your winnings for blind packs, hoping to get something helpful. So there is a gambling mechanic there, but it's not demanding actual money that can cause you financial harm.
Right, and if we're going to go that argument,
Did
anytime...
Balatro really get an M rating?
The equivalent of it in PEGI. I believe it got a PEGI 18. Let me look that up. Balatro,
I was like, wait a minute.
PEGI.
But yeah, that's your big difference there. And yeah, there is simulated gambling in it, just not normal poker gambling.
Not only was it rated PEGI 18, it got delisted from several digital stores as well.
Did it really?
Yes.
Wow. I'm gonna have to do some digging on that. That's interesting. Huh. But yeah, I think we found the line. Anything else you want to toss in on this? This is your baby today.
Yeah. I just think more than anything else, just keep paying attention. And maybe the conversation isn't developers need to make their games less addictive, because then, of course, you risk them making their games less fun in general. But stay healthy, folks. Set timers if you gotta.
Everything in moderation.
Be serious when you say one more run. Have someone hold you accountable if you gotta. Keep living your everyday life. Just, even if the end of this conversation is it's not the fault of games like Vampire Survivors and Balatro, I still just think it's good to be discussing, hey, we need to recognize even games that aren't being predatory can still be addicting. Stay healthy, folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can find yourself with a problem to something that isn't inherently a problem by itself, but mix in lack of self-control, and it's really easy to develop a problem with just about anything.
Right. So maybe the conclusion I'm coming to
I mean,
isn't
Lord
so-
knows we've all watched an episode of Hoarders.
Right. Maybe the conclusion that having this conversation helped me reach is not don't be Vampire Survivors and don't be Balatro, but if you're playing those games, pay attention to how long you've been playing them. It's very easy to lose track.
It is. But, you know, and some days that's exactly what you want or what you need. Just make sure you know when the right time is.
Sometimes it is.
But, well, do we want to wrap this here?
I think we're doing
I
all right. Yeah, I think we've said what we need to. I think we came to a good conclusion.
I'm here for it. All right. Well, in that case, I want to take a moment and give a huge thank you to everybody that tuned in and joined us and listened this week. Thank you to my awesome partner in crime, Wes Evans. Thank you to our amazing sponsor, Imaginary Authors. Link to them in the show notes down below. % game with fragrances for guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Go check them out. Also, if we want to hear your thoughts on any of this. Did we miss something? Should we have, taken this further? If so, what are we missing? Or did we cover it succinctly here? But jump into the Discord and let us know, because that link is down in the show notes as well. And I think that about does it. So say goodnight, everybody.
Mwah. Good night, everybody.
You've been tuned to the World 1-1 podcast, powered by the World 1-1 Podcast Network. Press start to engage your mind. Peace!